Hey everyone, before we start the show, I just want to get some plugs out of the way. If you enjoy this podcast and you're into wrestling, check out the Nerds and Marks podcast or Marty and Sarah Love Wrestling. If you're not getting your fill on movie and entertainment discussion, then check out the Entertainment Buffet podcast. If you want to dive into the world of video games, I highly recommend the Darkcast by my friends over at darkstation.com. Listen to them cover important topics and interview men and women from all over the industry. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. Hello everyone and welcome to today's shelved mini episode. I am your host, Jeremy Meyer. It's actually been a few weeks since we've done a mini episode. I've kind of just been rolling out episodes here, but that's been due to poor scheduling and busy work time. I'm kind of just trying to cram in these episodes as I can. But yeah, so I have a few things to talk about today. First, we're going to talk about our next episode. And then after that, I'm going to jump into a review of Justice League, because I did see Justice League, and I just did Justice League Mortal, the George Miller script, so I figured it's only right that I talk about my thoughts and opinions on Justice League. But first, let's talk about the movie that we're going to be discussing on the next episode. And I've already mentioned this before, but we're going to do one of my favorite video game movies, and not one of, it is my favorite video game movie, based on one of my favorite video games of all time. We're going to be looking at the first draft of the Mortal Kombat movie script. Now, this is the movie that came out in 1995. This is the first draft of that movie turned in before then, and it follows the same path of the movie we know, but it is quite different along that path. So it was an interesting read. I've already read it. It'll be a solo episode with just me, as will the next few episodes, because we are now in my busy time at work where I am working 13 to 15 hours a day. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be squeezing in these episodes when I can. Probably a lot of tired morning recordings. Just so I can get the episodes done. But yeah, it's a crazy time at work right now, and it'll be crazy until about the end of December. So this is going to be kind of the path going forward for the rest of the year. And then in January, I'm hoping to have like a bunch of guests lined up and get them all recorded. So should be having a ton of guest episodes from February on, but that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And I do just want to say that this recording in this episode is on my wife's birthday, so I just want to say happy birthday to my wife. She's the best. She's the love of my life, and I just want to say happy birthday. And now everyone can hear me say that to her, so that's a little thing for me. Okay, so without wasting any time, let's just get into it. My review of the latest DCEU movie, Justice League. This is what they've been building up to since Man of Steel, though not technically. Okay, so where do I even begin with this one? You know what? The real point is, did I like the movie, yes or no? And that's kind of a complicated answer. I will say no, I don't think the movie is good, but there are things about it that I liked. I think the movie's a mess. It really, all the reshoots and everything that go on really show. It's very obvious when there are reshoots, because there is terrible CG editing out Henry Cavill's mustache that he had from Mission Impossible, which is a whole story on its own. To me, it's a bad movie. I can totally understand why people are liking it, because there are moments of the movie that are good, but they're completely overshadowed by just how little you care about anything going on. It never feels like there's a real threat in the movie. Things just kind of happen to move the plot along with no rhyme or reason. So it's like a movie that just kind of goes through the motions and occasionally presents you with something that's entertaining to watch. And most of that's... so here's my problem. Most of the parts I enjoyed were very clearly the Joss Whedon reshoots, which were character moments. I really liked a lot of the character moments. And there is an extensive list out there that talks about what moments are Snyder and what moments are Whedon, that are on Reddit and stuff, supposedly coming from somebody who was involved with the production of the movie. There are some stuff from the Snyder part that I do like the Wonder Woman scene in the beginning of the movie where she's like thwarting the terrorist attack. I really like that scene, and that was apparently all the Zack Snyder scene. I think Whedon did step in and do some additions to that scene, but overall it was Zack Snyder. I like the opening with Batman, which was all intents and purposes a Joss Whedon edition. It's basically, it sounds like Snyder's movie would have opened with the musical montage in the beginning. I guess I should have said this at the beginning, but spoilers for this movie. Although I don't really think there's anything to spoil, because honestly, if you haven't seen the movie and you messaged me guessing the plot of the movie, you would probably be like 90% accurate. There were zero surprises in this movie. The closest thing to a surprise is there's a flashback scene talking about Steppenwolf, and they show a Green Lantern, and it's like a 2-second shot of a Green Lantern getting killed and then his ring flying off to go find its new owner, which is like, that was a cool moment. Like, I like that moment. But all right, let's talk about what did I like. I like the characters, honestly. I felt all of the characters kind of filled their role and were well enough acted. To me, the weakest being Aquaman, who very clearly was reshot to be this kind of punk rock acting character, which he very clearly wasn't in the Snyder version. He was very clearly brooding and basically Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones. Because like there's scenes from Snyder that are intact where he's walking and very serious and brooding, and then all of a sudden he turns around and he's against a green screen and he's just like, hey man, I don't know. Like it's so obvious that they just turned that character into something else. And even one of his character moments that comes on later on, which I really liked, was when they're all getting ready to go on this, the final battle, and they're on Bruce Wayne's carrier plane or whatever, and he's sitting on Wonder Woman's lasso of truth and just spewing out all these things like, we're all gonna die, like I don't want to do this, I'm still young, I got shit to do, and Wonder Woman, you are so beautiful, and like so clearly a Joss Whedon moment. And but it was a moment that worked for me, and I did think it was funny, and it's just so obvious how that character was changed. And keeping on with Aquaman, the whole scene in Atlantis I thought was really bad. It makes me really wonder what an Aquaman movie is going to be like, especially when, to talk underwater, they had Mera create like an air bubble, which apparently they're not going to do in the Aquaman movie because there's just no fucking talking between these people and making these movies consistent, which has been a major problem with the DCEU so far. Is like every movie has that kind of Snyder feel to it, in a sense that like, oh, it's dark and they have that look, but they all just kind of feel the same. And unfortunately, it was a bad feeling from the start. I mean, when you're branching off of Man of Steel and giving it to the same director, and a lot of people had problems with Man of Steel, like it's just not gonna go well. And you should be building up to this team movie. Like, this is the thing that everyone should be excited for. And the only thing that got me excited for it at all is the fact that, like, oh, you get to see the Justice League on screen for the first time. And even then, there's no scene in the movie where it's like, here's the team and here's this epic fucking panel of a shot showing them, like, together. Like, you look at, and I hate to do this, but you have to do it, look at Avengers. There's that one shot that's like an action shot of them flying through the city, and you're watching them all fight together and work together. And it is a perfect shot that shows this team working in unison And it's so fucking epic, and this movie never gives you that. There's the closest you get is like, here's all of them standing in front of Superman's grave or like his monument, but Superman's not in the shot because he's opposite the camera. And then here's all of them walking off the cargo plane, but Superman's not in the shot because he hasn't joined the final battle yet. And it just like the whole idea of the Justice League is they need to work together to, you know, be the League and like take down the villain. And honestly, it's just a lot of biding time until Superman shows up and then just takes out Steppenwolf like it's no problem. And Steppenwolf himself as a character is pretty lame. Like this, I thought the CG on him was really bad. He, like a lot of people say, he looks like a PlayStation 3 character, and I completely agree. I didn't think he was that bad. I did feel that when he was around, and I felt like it was mostly because of his voice, he did have a kind of threatening presence, but then he never really does anything. Like his best scene is when he first shows up at Themyscira, and the Amazons are trying to keep the mother box away from him, and like they're, you know, the Amazons are being killed, but they're just throwing the box further and further. It's like, keep it moving, you know, and like that was a great scene. But, like, it, you know, it just ends, and then Steppenwolf is just kind of in and out of the movie, and he just never really, like, I never really cared about his plan, which is pretty much the exact same plot of Man of Steel is, hey, this villain is going to turn our planet into his home planet, and, like, oh, we already saw that, and Superman stops him, just like in the previous movie. And I will say, the death of Steppenwolf is really fucking bad. So the parademons, which are, you know, the flying bug creatures, like soldiers that he has, they seem to prey on fear. And there's like a little hint of that in the beginning of the movie where Batman's chasing a criminal who he literally talks to Alfred out loud in front of, which is like, oh, is this a criminal? Is this a friend of his? And like, for all intents and purposes, I like when I was watching, I was like, oh, this must be a friend of his that he was using to lure out the parademon. But it seems to be just a criminal, like, and he's just like Alfred, like right in front of him. And it's like, dude, you don't do that. Like, how many Alfreds could there possibly be? Yeah, it's, oh god. But yeah, so they implant the idea in the beginning that parademons feed on fear, or seek out fear. And then once Superman comes up and the Justice League fucks up Steppenwolf, it's like, oh, all of a sudden he's afraid, and all the parademons turn on him and start attacking him, which is like, what the fuck? Like, that is the dumbest fucking ending. Like, this is supposed to be a big epic movie, and it's just such a bad idea. Yeah, like, it's just such a mess. And the parts I liked don't outweigh how messy the movie is. Like, even just sitting there and turning off my brain and like, oh, you know, plot's stupid, whatever. It's like, which we shouldn't have to do. Like, people who sit there and say that about these movies, it's like, I get it. You want to like the DC movies because you love DC characters, and I love DC characters. Like, I love reading Justice League. I love reading Batman. I not so much some of the other characters, but I really enjoy like Justice League comics, and I want to see a good Justice League movie too. And we've seen comic book movies be more than just shut off your brain and watch an action movie. So like, we deserve better. Like, DC has put out some of the best comic book movies ever with the Dark Knight trilogy. Even the worst Dark Knight movie is better than any of the DCEU movies so far. And there are shining lights of hope. Like, in Justice League, this was the first time we saw Superman be Superman, where he actually feels like a character of hope. Like, throughout the whole DCEU so far, they've held up Superman as like, oh, he was this great beacon of hope, and now that he's gone, everything is terrible. But they never showed us Superman being that beacon of hope. In Man of Steel, he destroyed an entire city. In Batman v Superman, everyone was mad at him for destroying an entire city. And then he died in that movie, and it's like, why all of a sudden does everybody care when everybody hated him before? And it made no sense. And then in Suicide Squad and Justice League, everyone was holding him up as like, oh, Superman was this great fucking hero. And it's like, no, he wasn't. You never showed us that. Never. And in Justice League was the first time you kind of got a glimpse of like, this is how Superman should be and this is how people should feel about him. But it's just like, it's too little too late. Like, you've already kind of ruined this character and now we're suddenly supposed to buy into this, and I'm just not. But it does give me hope for the future. Like with Man of Steel 2, you know, they could, if they even fucking make a movie beyond this. I mean, Aquaman is already done, so that one's in the bag, which what are the fucking odds that Aquaman is going to do well when Justice League had a smaller opening and is probably going to have one of the smallest box office returns of the DCEU. Like, this movie might not turn a profit. Like, you look at the budget and the box office, which at the time, the budget says $300 million, and they've made like 318 or some shit like that. Like, almost, I guess now I think they're up to like 400. The budget for this movie is actually $600 million because the initial production budget was $300, and then they had to go do reshoots, which from I think they say is like $30 million. Plus, I think I was looking up on Forbes, they have an article, and I think Warner Brothers gave them initially $145 million for production, and then there's like $150 million in marketing. And this movie, there's a chance that it could not turn a profit in the box office, and you're gonna sit there and think Aquaman is gonna do any better when he's a character that is like nobody cares about. And even coming out of this movie, people like this version of Aquaman. I like this version of Aquaman, but I mean, is this version even going to be consistent with Justice League since they went in and reshot a bunch and Aquaman was already in production? It just raises a lot of questions for the future of the DC universe, and none of them are looking good. The best idea here is to fast track Flashpoint, which is the Flash movie, and that's the point where they can rewrite their universe, because already Ben Affleck is looking for a way out. You know, he's like, it was always rumored, but now he's openly said that he's looking for a, you know, cool and graceful way to exit the franchise. And I think Flashpoint is the only option, because basically you create your new 52 universe after that. You recast who you need to recast. I think Ezra Miller as Barry Allen, I thought he was great. The comedy was way too forced in the movie, but some of it did work. So I think just, you know, tone it back, because Justice League did feel like the ultimate response to Batman v Superman, whereas this movie is so fucking dark. So like, let's put way too many jokes in this movie. And it just felt like a problem. It just felt like this movie had no vision. And honestly, the 2-hour runtime hurts it. But I don't think, apparently Zack Snyder's cut was 3 hours. I don't think that version would have been any better. I still want to see it. Like, I hope they put out the Zack Snyder director's cut, because I want to see even the movies I don't like Suicide Squad, I thought was complete trash. And I still want to see David Ayer's original cut. Like, there were 3 cuts of that movie, and apparently we got the 3rd version. I want to see every version of that movie. I want to see every cut of Justice League you got. Like, I want to see everything. And I'm a person that's a fan of fan edits. I'd love to see what a fan edit could look like. Even just putting out all the scenes that were cut as deleted scenes and seeing if somebody can cut them back in is always a fun idea. But I would love to see that version. I don't think I would like it anymore, because Snyder clearly is not the person to be handling this. His vision is not what we want. There are some fans that are loving it, and that's great for them. But to me, it doesn't feel like DC. Like, he turned Batman into the Punisher, and Batman killed people. I don't know how anybody defends that. Like, you watch Batman v Superman, and he killed at least 6 people by my count. And that's given the fact that the 3 vehicles he blows up only had 2 people inside of them. And I'm pretty sure there were more than 2 people. Like, it's terrible. And, you know, Justice League, they try to fix that, and they do some things right. Like, like I said, there are scenes I like. The ending action scene, I think, is really bad. Just a really terrible CG mess. But it has some good moments. Like, there's the moment with Flash and Superman that is funny and very good. It does make Superman look way stronger than we've ever seen him be in this universe before. But, you know, that is what it is. I will say we also get the first use of Superman's breath power in this movie, which, if you think about it, there's a lot of powers that Superman has demonstrated in the comics that we've never seen in the DCEU, and that was one of them. So that was kind of cool. What was that? I really like the scene where they bring Superman back to life and everybody has to fight him because he's crazy and doesn't know what's going on. And the moment with the Flash where, Superman's holding on to like 3 of them and they can't move. So Flash starts like running around them and he's like, yeah, I'm really fast. I'm going to get everybody out of this. But as he's running, Superman's eyes start following him and then he's just watching him the whole time. And Flash is like, what the fuck? And then they start fighting and it's kind of like a slow motion fight of them fighting in super speed. I love that. That to me, that's the best moment of the movie right there. But yeah, it's just a mess. I've said that so many times at this point, but there are tiny moments in the movie that give me a little hope for the future. Like if you can capture these moments and build on those, then I think you can turn it around. And maybe not immediately. Here's what I would do. Get Ben Affleck in a solo Batman movie. I love Ben Affleck as Batman. I don't think these movies have known what to do with him. Justice League proves that they don't know what to do with Batman. Like, I read that Justice League Mortal script, and they do a great job of making Batman feel like he belongs on the team. And this whole movie is just like, Batman, like, I'm just a regular dude, and you people are basically gods, so, like, it should be on you. And, he's literally, like, on a suicide mission at one point, because he's like, oh, you have Superman now. It doesn't matter about me. And that's just not Batman as a character, and it doesn't feel like good storytelling. Because then they don't justify Batman being on the team at the end, either. And, like, they just don't know how to use Batman in these scenes, and they just need a better writer. Like, get Jeff Johns in there. Jeff Johns has written some of my favorite Justice League comics, and just get him in there he is the one that saved the franchise of the Wonder Woman. So get him in there to write the Batman movie, to write Justice League. And honestly, he was writing the Batman movie. It was Ben Affleck and Jeff Johns writing the Batman movie. And honestly, Ben Affleck is an Academy Award winning writer for Good Will Hunting, which is one of my favorite movies. Jeff Johns is one of the best comic book writers in the industry, definitely one of the best writers for DC. And you're going to throw out that script? Like, I can't imagine. I assume it was like an Arkham Asylum, Serious House on Serious Earth type script, because I kept saying that, like, pretty much every Batman villain was going to be in it, so I assumed it was going to be an Arkham Asylum type movie, which would have been cool and awesome, and we would have, like, hey, here's all the Batman villains, and now we know we have them cast and can pull them out for whatever movie we want to do. And, like, even in Justice League, they constantly reference, like, oh, wasn't it better when the biggest fear was, like, wind-up penguins? It's like, you just keep talking about the movie I actually want to be watching. And I want to see a Ben Affleck solo Batman movie. And, we don't even know if we're going to get that with the way they're, like, breaking up their universe. Like, oh, we got a Joker movie, but it's not part of the universe. But we also have another Joker movie that is part of the universe. And Gotham City Sirens and Batgirl. Like, are any of these movies still happening? We don't know. The only movies that are guaranteed at this point are Aquaman. And after that, it's like, oh, well, we said we're doing Wonder Woman 2, but are they going to? Like, what are they going to do with this universe now that Justice League has come out and fizzled? I don't know. And I would like to see, like, part of me is like, yes, just scrap it all, keep the actors that work, which I think all the cast works, but just, like, start over a new universe or something. Another part of me is like, hey, just fast track Flashpoint. That should be your next movie after Aquaman, and then rewrite everything. And maybe that's what they're planning on doing. Like, they kept saying Steve Trevor is going to be in Wonder Woman 2. What if Wonder Woman 2 is post Flashpoint, and in that world Steve Trevor is still alive? There are ways to fix this, and I think Flashpoint is your way to do it. And I guess realistically, I want to see them do the Batman movie next, then do Flashpoint, so we can get our solo Batman movie. Then they can do Flashpoint. Ben Affleck can cameo in it because Batman is in Flashpoint. And then, you recast your actor. Because, like, after Flashpoint, everybody's a little younger or whatever. So you can give us our younger Batman with a new actor. And Ben Affleck can be out in a way that makes sense. And I think that's the right way to do it. But, yeah, overall, I guess that's my thoughts on Justice League. There's nothing I can really think of off the top of my head. I do want to pull in the list of the differences between the Snyder version and the Whedon version and kind of cover those at a later point. But yeah, for now, that's my review on Justice League. Overall, I give it a 2 out of 5, which is pretty much the same thing I gave Batman v Superman. I think it's a bad movie, but it's better than Batman v Superman, so I don't do half stars. To me, halves don't fucking matter. So to me, both movies are a 2 out of 5, but Justice League is a better 2 out of 5. It's more entertaining. I would actually watch it again. And I mean, eventually I'm going to do commentary tracks for all of the DC movies, so I will be watching it again anyway. And hopefully that'll be the last time I see Suicide Squad and maybe Batman v Superman. But yeah, it's just I'm very disappointed with the movie. I was actually having hope, and I stupidly get hope for every one of these movies because, I mean, obviously Wonder Woman, it went okay, so I'm like, all right, well, maybe this one will be good. And there was a lot of people going out and seeing it, and they were saying they liked it, and now I feel like it's just a bunch of people who, this is what you get, so I feel like I have to like it. But I mean, if you like it, fucking good for you, man. I'm glad you can enjoy these movies, but they are just not making movies for me, and I'm not sure who they're making movies for, and it just feels like a mess. They need a Kevin Feige like Marvel has to, correct the plot of these movies. There's no clear path. They need a clear path. I think they did Justice League way too early. You had to introduce 3 characters in this movie. And notice I didn't even talk about Cyborg because Cyborg is a nothing in the movie. He's well acted by the actor, but the CG on him is really bad. There was just this fucking uncanny valley of looking at him. It was just very off-putting. And especially when you have him in the Zack Snyder, filter, which Zack Snyder has a way of making movies look beautiful, but the CG in this movie overall I felt was really bad. I looking at it at times, I was oh, sometimes this looks great, and then other times this looks like shit. It looks unfinished. And it's crazy for a $300 million movie, aka a $600 million movie. I don't get it. But yeah, those are my thoughts. 2 out of 5, but better than Batman v Superman. It is the second best. Actually, no, it is the third best of the DCEU movies. Because honestly, I think Man of Steel is better. Having rewatched Man of Steel recently, I still think Man of Steel is a problem of a movie, but I think it's an okay movie. I think Wonder Woman is a great movie. So to me, it's Wonder Woman, Man of Steel, Justice League, Batman v Superman, then Suicide Squad, which is the worst. Hands down. Not even the worst DCEU movie, one of the worst movies. But yeah, so that's my opinion on Justice League. A real mess. Really wished it was better. I hope they put out the extended version of the movie. I think keeping it down to 2 hours. I understand that idea, but I don't think it was the right decision. 2.5 at least. I don't know. But that's going to be it for today's mini episode. That's it for my review of Justice League. I want to hear your thoughts. I know some of my friends have seen it and they like it. I want to hear from anybody. I want to hear your opinions on the movie. Be sure to hit us up on Twitter at Shelved Podcast or email us at shelvedfilmpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about Justice League. But that's all I have for today. Remember, this week's episode is going to be Mortal Kombat. And that episode, it's supposed to drop on Friday. I'm going to be honest, there's a chance it could drop on Sunday with my work schedule. I don't know if I'll be able... I'm working Monday through Saturday currently, when I normally work Monday through Friday. And we're working very late, so that episode might actually drop on Sunday. But we'll see. The schedule's going to be a little wonky for a little while. But I would like to get it up on Friday or Saturday at the latest. But it might go Sunday. When I have a day off, I can just record it, edit it, and put it up in one day. So look for it somewhere between Friday and Sunday. Gonna do Mortal Kombat based on the video game, my favorite video game movie. I'm also working on some content for the YouTube channel. Currently looking to do a 2-part my top 50 movies of all time. I'll say it was inspired by Cinemassacre. I was just kind of watching stuff on YouTube, and I was like, yeah, top 50 movies. That to me, that sounds like a challenge to come up with what are my 50 favorite movies. So I've been in the middle of making a list. I think I have my 50. I'm gonna have to go through it again and see if there's anything I'm missing or anything like that. But I currently have a list of 50 movies that are out of order. So my next step is confirming that list of 50 and then putting them in order, which I've done my top 10 before. So if you want to know my top 10, you can seek that out. But I actually want to people seem to follow the show pretty well on YouTube, so I'd like to do some video stuff and put it up on YouTube. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, be sure to look out for that. That'll probably be. I'd like to get that done before the end of the year, but we'll see how that goes. It might be early next year. But yeah, so that's going to be it for today's episode. Hit us up. I want to know about your Justice League opinions. But thank you for listening, and be sure to look for our next episode, which is Mortal Kombat.